Hi. So for this one, I want you to specifically create a new project on PyCharm and actually pay a lot of attention because this is a very, very important topic as we move ahead, and you are going to use this trick or this method so much in your whole programming journey. So what we're going to be learning today is called typecasting. So before we go ahead, let's just create a new project on PyCharm. I go here to File, click on New Project. um, as usual, click here, go to my desktop, go to Python course, click on open, put a forward slash, and I'm going to call this project typecasting. That's Typecasting. Now, when we click on create, and I'm going to create this in a new window, we have a new project created. Just going to remove the breakpoint, select all the default code, and remove it as always. Now, once this is done, let's just take a minute and talk about what is typecasting. So, typecasting, as the name suggests, basically means in very, very simple words or in layman's terms that you want to change the data type of a certain variable from one data type to another data type. For example, changing the data type of an integer variable to a string variable or integer to float or vice versa, right? Changing bool or boolean to string or string to integer, just changing the data type of one variable to another data type. So enough talking about that. This topic is something that you'll learn by doing. So I'd suggest that you actually code along with me in this lesson. So let's just get into it. Now that you have your project created, let's just move ahead and create a couple of variables. So I'm just going to create a variable age equals 20, name equals John, which is a string, as we know because it's within double quotes. Then country equals United Kingdom, and well, another thing could be postal code, could be some random string. So I'll just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, the first thing that we're going to be doing is let's create a sentence, a string sentence by using all of these variables. So in this case, I'll just write print and then I'll write, okay, within double quotes, my name is, and then plus name, right? And if I run this, it says, my name is John, right? So you're concatenating two strings just like we learned in the past lessons. So from the previous lessons, when we learned how to concatenate two strings, it's pretty simple. You just add or you just use the addition symbol or the plus symbol between the two strings that you want to join or concatenate. Now, in this case, we've created a string that says, my name is John. Let's add something else. And I am, oops, need to put that in double quotes. And I am plus age plus years old. Yep, it's pretty simple. Now let's click on run and it gives us a pretty scary error, right? Looks super scary, but what I want you to focus on is just this line right here, the last line, which says type error can only concatenate string to string and not int. So what this means is that in Python, you can only join two strings together using the addition sign. So how do we fix this? To fix this, what you could do is you could obviously not change the my name is and the name variable to an integer, right? Because that wouldn't make any sense. So instead of that, what you do is you change the age variable to a string. So to do that, you simply write str and then cover the age within parentheses of this str. So what this says is that it's basically telling Python, or this line of code is basically telling Python that, okay, yeah, the age variable that I have stored is an integer, but I want you to consider this age variable as a string. So just for this print statement, Python is going to consider this age variable as a string. And when I click on run, it says my name is John and I am 20 years old. Let's just format this a little better. I'll put a space here, I'll put a space here, and run that again. And now it says my name is John and I am 20 years old. Simply because this str typecast converts the 20 integer age into a 20 string, right? So now that this is done, we could also try another way, right? So instead of adding the str typecast right here, I could add it right here where we define our variable. So I'd write str and put that in the parentheses and remove the str typecast right here because it's already a string. And now when I click on run, I get the same result. Now, uh, let's just complete this. So it says my name is John and I am whatever age is this years old. In double quotes, we'll add a full stop and then we'll say I live in plus country and let's just put a space and add the postal code. So yep, that's pretty simple, very straightforward, something that we've done before. Now let's take another example. So let's take 3 or 4 variables. So we've got a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20.0, c is equal to 30.0, and d is equal to 100. Okay, now let's say I create 4 variables. So there's addition, subtraction, then multiplication, and finally division. Right, so obviously I'm going to get these red squiggly lines here and Python's going to give me an error because these variables don't really have a value right now. But let's just give them some values. So as of now, I'll just give these 3 a base simple value. So in this case, when we talk about addition, and we'll just print out addition here. So when we talk about the addition variable, let's just add a and b. So a plus b. That should give us 30.0, right? Because this is a float and this is an integer. So 10 plus 20.0 should give us 30.0. Now when I click on run, that's exactly what it gives us. But let's say I change this from 10 plus 20.0 to 10 plus 30.0, but it's a string. So that would be inside variable c. And when I click on run, it says, again, it gives me a type error and it says unsupported operand types for the plus operator, int and string. This is similar to the previous error. It's basically just saying that you cannot use this between an integer and a string. So what do? In this case, we could either convert a into a string and, well, let c be a string, or we could convert c into an integer or a float, which it is, it's a float here, right? So we could convert it from a string to a float and then continue the addition. Let's just do everything, right? So first off, let's just see if we can convert a to a string. So str of a. So you've converted a into a string and you're adding it to the string c. And when I click on run, it says 1030 because right now we just have 2 strings, this a string 10 and a string 30, and when you add them they just concatenate, they just join. So string 10 plus string 30 is just 1030.0, just because 30 has a 0.0 with it. Now alternatively, if I remove the string typecast right here and go ahead and make c a float, right? I just need to write float and put it into parentheses. So I'm just saying that, okay, let a be an integer, but make c, which is a string, a float. And you run that, and that gives you 40.0, which is 10 plus 30.0. It's pretty simple, right? Let's move ahead and let's take a look at the subtraction. So when we talk about subtraction, let's subtract d minus b, or d minus c in this case, right? So d minus c would be 100 minus 30.0, which should be 70.0, right? So if I print out subtraction and I click on run, it says again type error, unsupported operand types for str and str. The same error. Now in this case, you know that c is a float and d is an integer. So let's just convert d into an integer. So that would be the int typecast, and c into a float. Yeah. And then we run this. So when we do that, we get 70.0 because 100 minus 30.0 is 70.0. Alternatively, if you convert the c into an int, so if you convert the 30.0 into an int, it's not going to be 30.0 anymore. It's just going to be an integer 30, and that should give us a 70. But hold on, that gives us an error that says the value error invalid literal for int with base 10, that is 30.0. So what Python is telling us right here is that since you've stored some value as a string, but it can actually only be converted into a float because it has a decimal in it, right? You cannot convert a float into an int from a string. But if I had to convert this 100 into a float, just like that, and I'll also change this to float just as it was, and I run it, that works swiftly and works like a charm. So what you need to know is that it's always easier to convert uh, an integer to a float, but in certain cases, you'll always have issues converting a float to an integer. Let's take an example of that. Now if I print out um, type of 10.0, just like that, that should give me class float because it belongs to the class float. But at the same time, if I type out type of int of 10.0, which means that I'm converting the float 10.0 into an integer and I'm asking for its type. Let's see if Python actually converts it into an integer, and it does. So conversion like this into an integer from a float is possible. Let's say we have a new variable a is equal to 10.0, and then I print out a just as it is. It should just give me 10.0, which is a float. But if I print int of a, that should convert this 10.0 into an integer and just give me a 10. So when I click on run, it just gives me a 10, and that is the power of typecasting. Finally, to basically conclude this lesson, let's talk about the different types of typecasts that we just learned. The first one is the int, which converts any data type into an integer as long as that data type is a number. Then we have the float, which converts any type of data into a float as long as that data type has a number in it, except converting, for the integer typecast, you cannot convert a float string into an integer, but you can convert a float string to the float data type. Now, let's talk about the string typecast, which is the str typecast. Now, the str typecast is, in my opinion, the most powerful typecast because that converts any kind of data into a string, because it's always easier to just put double quotes around something and convert it into a string. So the str typecast is super easy and important. Further in this course, we'll be learning about several more typecasts with data structures, and that is something that you'll have to wait for because that comes further ahead in the course. Super powerful functions, super powerful methods of doing things, and they just make your life so much more easy. And I think that's why I like Python so much. And I hope that you're liking Python as well. Now, if you have any questions about this lesson, As always, put it down in the comments and I'll get back to you ASAP with an appropriate answer, and we'll make sure that you've understood every bit of this concept. Now, let's just take a look at the course ahead and move on to the next one. Until then, just make sure you're tinkering around with Python, taking all the knowledge that you've built in and playing around with it. Try to get your hands deeper and dirtier into Python so that you can learn more of it faster and you can be a better programmer every single day. And always remember that programming is something that you learn with practice. So try and think of small programs that you can write with all the knowledge that you have right now. Until then, just have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.